Jewish
Oh no,
Americans,
Missouri
but
goes
I
to
think that
Donald
we'll
Trump.
talk
It's
about that
Jover
today.
again.
Look a lot at
Alabama to Donald Trump. Oh no, it's Jover. Oklahoma to Donald Trump. Oh no. Oh no. Never mind. District of Columbia. We're back up.
Masculine identity. We've actually been hearing a lot of talk about the Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan podcast. In fact, a little while ago, we were talking to two guys. One of them said that he was on the fence until he said when Kamala did not go on the Joe Rogan podcast, that was what influenced his vote. He ended up voting for Trump, but he said that he was open to listening to Kamala on the podcast, and when she didn't, again, not necessarily all the issues, but the fact that
I'm not kidding when I say this. This is like, there are real people like this. And I told you that there are people like this, and you didn't listen to me. Okay. This is the United States of America. Of course, there are people who are like, oh, I wasn't going to vote until I saw Joe Rogan do an interview. Like, I don't know how else I could describe, like, I don't know how many times I have to explain to people that, like, there are people like this out there. Okay. These are real people.
he said she didn't seem like a real person because she couldn't talk for an extended period of time. So masculine identity, we've actually been...
I didn't know my ex moved to Arizona. Goddamn. Yeah, no, that's like, Kaya, we have a lot of guests. Stop licking yourself like that. That's inappropriate. It's not a matter of do these people exist? It's more so a matter of are they going to go out and vote for Donald Trump? Because these people certainly exist. They're out there. Okay. Their single issue is whether she went on Joe Rogan or not. Yeah. I mean, Americans used to vote on dumb shit like this all the time. Like, the most common trope is like, is the president the type of guy I can have a beer with? It's not that shocking. It's not that shocking at all that people would be making these calculations. Anyway, Democrats in particular might be ready to elect a woman. Yeah, no shit. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. ABC News, keeping an eye on interesting race and issues in Maryland. Harris is preparing to speak tonight regardless of vote status. Sources, there's an expectation she might speak. I assume that she'll try to do another unity message while, you know, Donald Trump is fucking running the table and saying that 3 minutes until the big polls close. Yeah. People do more research on what to buy than who to vote for. That is literally true. Yes. That is a real thing. Unfortunately. Is Ohio lead real or am I libbed up? This was fun. Now I'm anxious and bored. Wait, what do you mean? Nothing has happened yet. Virtually nothing has happened yet. Like there is nothing that has occurred yet. The needle has not moved in any direction so far. It might get tricky. It might get scary later in the night. But so far, there isn't anything that's, you know, remotely interesting or unique.
Here, it's a pretty relaxed, confident mood. Rick Scott told us earlier this was the first time he's ever run for state office where he's actually been predicted to win. He said that's largely because of a strong performance in early voting, more than 8 million Floridians.
I want to explain something to you guys, but this man right here, one of the richest, if not the richest member of Congress, he is famous for doing insurance, okay? And the state of Florida fucking voted for him as governor, regardless of that. Or maybe they did it for that reason. I don't know. I just have given up on the entirety of the state of Florida a long time ago. I gave up on trying to understand like what motivates them. I feel like, or rather, I have come to the recognition that the state of Florida just objectively votes for the worst person possible. Like they're like, this guy seems like a real piece of shit, and I love him for that reason. Like, looks like like that makes it even weirder. Like he doesn't even pass the optics test.
We know has really been trending toward the left. It's been a swing to the right by 8 points compared to 2020. So you look at something like that, you understand why Karl Rove today said it could be tight in Virginia. Fayette, Georgia, Trump +2. That's a place that I had said early on, Harris will have to do well there to compete in Georgia.
Polls are closing.
Also, as Pennsylvania closes its
oh no,
polls,
it's Jover. Tennessee's gone to Donald Trump.
Noting, Martha, that this
this
is like political
malpractice. The Democrats are up big. Maryland goes to Kamala Harris.
We've got a...
Oh no, Missouri goes to Donald Trump. It's Jover again.
A lot.
Alabama to Donald Trump. Oh no, it's Jover. Oklahoma to Donald Trump. Oh no. Oh no. Never mind. District of Columbia. We're back up. On-call races are Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Maine, Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island.
Connecticut and, of course, Pennsylvania as well. Let's show you what we can right now in Pennsylvania. No surprise here. It is too early to call. North Carolina, same story. They do count fast there, but not fast enough to call it. It's still too early to call. Just 5% of the vote in. And in Georgia, we're seeing a lot more of the vote, but still too early to make
Unironically, that was how my mom just reacted to all those Trump wins. What?
The numbers here, and I see you've got Virginia up there, which is a potential bellwether, something that might give us some indication about how this night might go.
Yeah, and it's a state that we can look at to see how the suburbs are going to perform across the country. I know a lot of you guys know the D.C. area very well. 30% of the vote is going to come from these northern suburbs. It's a good barometer to know also how Harris is doing with suburban women. So let's go to 2020 to compare here. So Prince William County, it looks like Harris is slightly down with 75% of the vote in. This one stood out to me. 95% of the vote is in Loudoun County right now. Biden was at 61%. Harris is now at 56%. Again, there's a difference
naked,
about 35,000 votes. 95% is in, and we can
Come on,
see how
Chad.
much of the vote is left. Only about 3,600 votes remain.
It's like 1% of the votes counted.
She's underperforming a little bit there. As we keep going here, Fairfax County, 45%.
8% of expected votes. Shut up.
Doing there. 69, about the same. Something else that's interesting that's happening in Virginia, Virginia Beach. This is a swing county. Trump won it in 2016. Biden was able to flip it. Tonight, Trump is on top, but only about 20% of the vote is in. A lot of the western part of the state, as we know, is going to be more rural. Some of that coal mining country, it's going to resemble West Virginia. We have some of the vote in a county like over here, Wise County. This is a good Trump barometer. He's at 78%. He was at 80% in 2020, but 41% of the vote is out. He's underperforming slightly. I guess the thing that sticks out to me, which it's too early to know if it's a red flag, but Loudoun County, again, you know, this is a place where Democrats want to run up those votes in Virginia. Not that Virginia is in danger for Democrats because they were able to run up the score in 2020, but Trump in 2016 got close. He got within 5 points. A number like this, it's going to worry them a little bit, but I know you guys know much more about that area than I do.
Well, actually, we're honored to have a resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia with us, Chuck Todd. So, I mean, you look at that, you know those suburban collar counties around Washington, D.C. very well. Is that a warning light if Kamala Harris is not performing?
They're taking Biden out back already. Biden will not attend Harris election night watch party. It's way past his bedtime. Sort of that's like really up
north rather than being
to expect him to attend that.
Seceded from the Confederacy, right? It is the one southern state that has been consistently a Democratic state, not even a swing state anymore. So if that is consistent, yes. One thing I've learned, though, with the Northern Virginia vote, you may have 95% of the vote in. That 5% can account for a lot more uncounted vote than people realize. So, and there is a sense. So that's a wait and see. Look, the bigger thing that I've taken.
By the way, chatters who don't understand, I do this every election cycle. States like, you know, Alabama, in Missouri, or states like even Florida at this point can be called fairly early because maybe not like each individual, maybe not the Senate runs, but like the way they project, this is not like an official call, right? The official votes are not completely calculated until, you know, a week later or 2 weeks later in some instances, right? They're calling this off of projections like past performances, okay? Like if a place that has gone to Donald Trump by plus, if a district has gone to Donald Trump by like plus 80, right, by 80%, that district is not going to go to Kamala Harris. So if the performance that you see early on is going to be close, and by the way, Associated Press says Rick Scott has won a re-election to his second term. That's also expected. It was also expected, for the record. They got Jessica on Fox. So they look at past performance. They look at what? Hanover, New Hampshire, Dartmouth College, 86% college. Harris, 84. 84% the Trump, 14% shift from 2020 Trump, 5+1. First college town fully in. So Trump has made some gains in a college town by 5 points. But now, once again, college town votes being... college town past performance is also not great because, you know, now they're actually in college as opposed to, I mean, even then, I feel like it's still worrisome considering that like younger college goers are even moving in Trump's direction from the past in the past 4 years. But overall, there isn't anything like unexpected thus far. Associated Press has called it for Florida for Donald Trump. Once again, expected results. I thought you were canceled. What happened? What do you mean? Serve me copium. I'm worried, please. Like, we haven't seen anything too damning so far. That's it.
Leading with independents over Vice President Harris in this really important state where the margins could be really close here. You can see it here. He's at 50%. She's at 44%. Again, that's in Pennsylvania. So you might ask, okay, well, how does that compare to how he did 4 years ago? He is overperforming generally.
Why are they calling states when only part of the votes have come in? Projection. They're projecting, and they're usually right. It's very rare that they're wrong.
50%. And Savannah, Lester, Chuck, Chris, and I'll toss it back to you.
They look at county by county.
Really interesting as we
they look at county by county and look at past performance, look at current polling, and if the vote calculation is basically around the same performance, then they project that Donald Trump is going to win or Kamala Harris is going to win. It makes sense.
And we now have fewer people identifying with the two major parties, according to our exit poll. It's a huge development. Independents are the fastest growing flock. Now, it's very rational. If you don't like the direction of the country, you don't like what's happening, and you think there's a threat to democracy, do you have a lot of faith in the two major parties? But the lowest share of major party people identifying with the two major parties in at least 4 elections, it means these independent votes are going to be the whole ball game. They're going to decide who's president.
We are keeping a sharp eye on the state of Georgia. We can show you where things stand. But we've just had a change of characterization here. Our characterization from the decision desk now is that this is too close to call. You can see about a 267,000 vote difference between the two, with 37% of the vote in. But again, the NBC News characterization at this point, too close to call in Georgia.
We've got a lot of contributors lined up to talk to you tonight. We've got Senator Claire McCaskill, I believe, over at our Insider's desk. And Senator, I wonder what you thought about that. What some are seeing is something of an alarm bell. This
what do you think
County,
about
suburban Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, where it seems that Kamala Harris is underperforming. And as you well know, the suburbs in the battleground states are key to her victory.
Yeah, listen, this is the witching hour. This is when it is very early. We have exit polls. And by the way, if exit polls were correct, I would be governor and John Kerry would have been president and Hillary Clinton would have been president. So I think we've got to take all of that with a big, giant grain of salt and wait for the actual numbers to come in. Because as we all know, these come in from different places. Typically, rural places come in before urban locations. So I think she's going to be fine in the suburbs. I think, and I don't think the exit polls will actually reflect accurately what will happen with independent voters. I'm not saying she's going to dominate independent voters, but I'll be very surprised if there aren't a whole lot of women that call themselves independents that don't vote for Donald Trump.
At what point in all this do you begin to let out a sigh of relief here?
Well, listen, I think depending on what happens in Georgia and North Carolina, if by any chance she wins those 2 states, then I can breathe again. If she does not, then
you asked me what my view count is in comparison to major news networks. NBC News' live broadcast coverage has 125,000, so I'm doubling them at this point. A chatter asked, like, what do you say to people who voted for third party but still want Donald Trump to lose? And my answer to them is always going to be the same, which is that vote shaming is not a successful strategy and has never been a successful strategy. And the Democratic Party, the Democratic campaign, absolutely failed in retaining those votes. Absolutely failed. If that is the case, I don't think that will be, but it is. It was their personal calculation. The Democratic Party's calculation was, we can win the state of Michigan without these votes. We can win Pennsylvania without trying to earn these votes. And if that's the calculation that they made, then that's just the calculation that they made. There's not anything I can do or anyone else can do that could outflank the campaign in that regard.
Philadelphia. Kate Baldwin told you just a few minutes ago we were going to get them. Here it is. She said we would get 100,000 votes.
There was data error in Loudoun County.
Right? 17% though of Philadelphia, 87% in the first
I don't know if it's copium or not.
The vice president, again, bit of a broken record, but you compare her. Joe Biden won Pennsylvania, so you want to go back and look 4 years ago, and how is she doing vis-a-vis Joe Biden? 87% in Philadelphia. He got 81% in Philadelphia. It's early in the count. We know these are early votes. Kate told us that. Early ballot Democratic. So will this number hold up for the vice president? we'll see as we play out. If she stays close to that number, comes down a little bit, she'll be in good stead in Pennsylvania, but we need to get more votes. Where are the rest of the votes? You're going to come out here now to Lancaster County. This will be interesting. If this one stays blue, you got 52% for the vice president if you round up. But look, it's fewer than 1,000 votes there, fewer than 800 votes. You come back 4 years ago, Donald Trump won this county convincingly, Lancaster County, 57% if you round that up. So we got a ways to go.
God damn it.
And like everything in this election year, it's complicated because you have a former president, so there's a certain incumbency there, and a sitting vice president, and there's certain incumbency there as well.
There's something baked into Donald Trump's call for
Allegheny
change
County
here because
first
he was already
draw,
in the White House
BBM.
for 4 years. Same thing for Vice President Harris as you're looking at the popularity or favorability rating for President Biden, which is low. And so the question, is that going to be a drag on how she does? To your point on the get out the vote effort, this is why early vote was critical for both of these campaigns, with some 79 million people voting early. Better to bank those votes. What if somebody gets sick? What if somebody's kid has to stay out of school or whatever? Get those votes in now to get them locked and loaded.
Let me just change the conversation just for a moment, because we do have another call to make, and it's an NBC News projection in the state of South Carolina. South Carolina will go to Donald Trump when all the votes are counted later. And here's where the breakdown right now that Donald Trump, again, the projected winner. 24% of the vote in there.
No!
Vote difference of about 104,000. But again, Donald Trump will pick up South Carolina. Here's where it leaves us on the road to 270. Donald Trump out in
Once
front.
again, a lot of smaller states are red or have red states have red performance. This is going to not come down to which states that are supposed to be red. They're, of course, going to go red. It's going to come down to 7 swing states. Okay. That is especially when you get to the blue wall states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, when you get to Wisconsin, that's where the fight is supposed to happen.
Voters, the campaign is seeing in the same exit polls we're looking at improvement among black voters, particularly black men, who the Trump campaign has spent heavily for months and months and months to try to win over even just a few percentage points, the kind of thing that could make a difference in a state decided by fewer than 12,000 votes 4 years ago. The other thing that I think has accrued to Trump's favor in Georgia is the resumption of unity among Georgia Republicans. Remember, there was a huge fallout with Brian Kemp, the popular Republican governor there, after 2020. Trump and Kemp made amends, although they rarely appeared together on the campaign trail, the two singing from the same hymnal in the race's closing weeks, along with a lot of these other Trump candidates, could be helpful to Trump in that state.
All right, Garrett, we have a call to make. This is North Carolina, the governor's race there. Josh Stein, the Democrat, takes the race there. He faced off against the Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, a very controversial candidate, and the polls had we talked about ticket splitting, where perhaps the vote for the presidency might be different than the vote down ballot. This perhaps will be an indication of that. Josh Stein, the winner of the governor's race in North Carolina. Just a brief word about this controversial lieutenant governor candidate. You both are jumping to tell me who wants to take.
Let me just say one.
We got 9 more hours to go here.
One small thing, which is this, because Kristen will get into, I think, how controversial this Republican gubernatorial candidate was.
That to me.
But just remember the ticket splitting piece. This is a state that has ticket split president governor before. That's it, right? So this, I think,
they have a Democratic governor right now.
That's
Roy
exactly
Cooper.
right. So if somebody's looking at this going, well, the Democratic governor won in North Carolina, doesn't that mean maybe that Vice President Harris is a lock? It does not. And just to throw that out there, this is a state that where Republicans know how to check a Republican for president and a Democrat for governor.
But this was a campaign on Mark Robinson's behalf. It was beset by problems.
Beset by problems because he was determined that he posted some highly
All counties showing dem shift in Ohio
on an adult website. And so the backlash was massive. This result was expected.
Tim Kaine in the membrane, ladies and gentlemen. Decision Desk projects Tim Kaine winning the Senate election in Virginia.
Down support for former President Trump. We don't know the answer, but we do know that in 2020, President Biden was not able to win this state because there was, in part, it's believed, a controversial Democratic candidate for Senate. And that did sink his chances. Now, just to zoom out a little bit, a Democrat hasn't won the state of North Carolina since 2008 when Barack Obama did it. Trump added 3 campaign stops in these closing days of the race.
Spent the whole weekend there, 3 days straight in North Carolina.
How important this state is to his path.
Also a sense that it might have been slipping away and trying to shore up.
Absolutely.
Well, North Carolina was very, very tight in 2022. Trump won it, but it was right up there in terms of narrow margins.
Which is absolutely. And it's a good reminder that even if the electoral vote count ultimately has a pretty wide gap, these margins can be very tight, and those electoral votes, listen, they all go to the winner, right? So that's what matters here in a state like North Carolina.
Well, we already talked to Garrett Haake, who was in West Palm at Trump headquarters. Let's go over to Peter Alexander. He's at the Harris headquarters in Washington.
Unfortunately, it seems like Lily Tang Williams, the Freedom candidate for New Hampshire District 2, is not doing well.
He is doing a bit better with those Black and Latino voters right now. Similarly, the Harris campaign feels good that she is outperforming with white voters over Joe Biden's performance with them in some of our early exit poll indications in parts of the country right now. One thing they're keeping an eye on. Another thing I'm hearing from senior officials within the campaign as they get ready to start the program here is that they are seeing really good enthusiasm among those youngest voters, those college students in particular right now. They're talking about long lines. You know what? Let me do this. They're starting the Star-Spangled Banner. I'll give it back to you with respect to our country, then we'll come back in a moment.
All right, Peter, that is Harris headquarters in Washington, D.C. We've got Tom Yamas over at the big board.
Yeah, we're talking Georgia, right? Because it is so close. A reminder here, we're talking about Democrats feeling a little hopeful in North Carolina, Republicans feeling a little better about Georgia. If they swap, right, if Democrats win North Carolina and Republicans win Georgia, they're both 16 electoral votes. We're back to square one where we were in 2020. Let's talk about Georgia tonight, because what we're seeing is both camps are overperforming. So it's going to be a nail-biter. Remember, in 2020, it came down to about 12,000 votes, a little under that. Let's start in Atlanta, the metro region. Cobb County, we have 57% of the vote in. And let's see how Biden did, 56%. This is
things are about to get.
Tells the story of
things
the
are going to
metro
start
region.
getting spicy, chat.
Represented Cobb
Buckle
County.
in.
And look how Democrats have been able to run up the score. From Romney in 2012, Clinton flips it, and look how they're growing the margins. And tonight, that's exactly what Kamala Harris is doing. She's growing the margins in Cobb County. Let's go around. Let's see what we have in Fulton. Fulton, 53%. Let's see how that compares to Biden, 72. She's holding her own around the Atlanta metro region. Let's see over here. Gwinnett, we only have about 1% in, not really worth a discussion there. Clayton County, 70% in, slightly overperforming Biden. That's pretty good. We'll keep moving. Henry County, 1% in. This is one of those swing counties we can talk about. You know,
it's 1%
in. I don't know how much we're going to be able to say there. Rockdale County, again, those Atlanta suburbs, 77% of the vote in. She's overperforming there. Okay, that's Harris. That's the Democrats.
Now you got to look at Trump's performance in red counties.
95% in. Trump at 78 in 2020. He's at right now.
Yeah, Donald Trump is not outperforming his past performance. Donald Trump is underperforming in comparison to 2020. Kamala Harris is overperforming comparison to 2020.
Again, those are the rural counties. Let's go to Georgia's Black Belt, where they have counties with lots of African-American voters. Here in Doherty, this is about 70% African-American here, slightly overperforming Biden. So again, guys, what I'm trying to say here is that right now, it's very similar to what we saw in 2020. Trump seems to be hitting his marks where he was in the rural counties. In those African-American counties and around the Atlanta region, Democrats are hitting those marks. It's going to be very close. It's one of the reasons why when we click on Georgia right here, it is literally just too close to call, guys.
All right, Tom, we got a lot ahead here. We're going to take a break and then another state closing.
Are you worried that DOJ is going to come down on you for bribing your chat to vote blue in Florida and Texas with tasteful nudes? No, but it's not going to happen anyway. So that's why I was confident enough in saying that this is what I would be doing. Okay. How are you performing compared to the last election, though? I think I'm performing pretty well in comparison to the last election. I'm holding out. Not an issue. No issues here.
Seeing you here tonight just opens my heart.
Okay. Ohio blue shift. Is Ohio copium? I don't know. Out of respect for the New York Times Guild, I'm not going to be looking at the needle tonight unless they actually resolve the issues. Well, I'm not going to be crossing the picket line and looking at the New York Times needle tonight. I don't believe that there's supposed to be a needle, but some people are saying that there is a needle. 2020 redo, Army of MAGA, election officials prepare to challenge results if Trump loses. Yes, that was definitely going to happen. A couple things that no matter what happens tonight, a couple things that were slated to happen is obviously was obviously going to be Trump's legal team contesting all the results, and Trump most likely claiming that he won tonight. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if he turned around and said, said nothing tonight. What is this? As I mentioned, early voting in Georgia skewed older and GOP within the same county. ED looks a lot bluer, or election day looks a lot bluer. We're possibly looking at a red mirage. Lived in Warren County for 6 years in Ohio, extremely Trump area. Seems like there's a 4 to 5% shift in Warren County. What? The call from the workers is to not use the cooking app or games, but also, yes, this is a joke. Not reading all... Wait, what? Will there be a needle tonight? Quick thread. As you may have read, our colleagues of the Tech Guild are on strike. While they don't play a role in the model itself, they built and maintain the infrastructure that feeds us data and let us publish on the internet. Yeah, okay, so they are. DeSantis tweeted, weed and abortion failed to pass. I don't think that they can make a projection on that yet, but that would be shocking if Florida was that fucking right-wing. It would be shocking if Florida was that right-wing that they literally did something that is, I guess it is over. Okay, never mind. NBC News saying that Florida has defeated the measure to legalize marijuana. Florida voters have defeated a ballot measure that would have legalized marijuana. Now, remember, for constitutional amendments, you have to get 60% of the vote, which is like, incredibly high. Florida always has a tendency to pass these constitutional amendments usually. Obviously, it would have passed if it was a straight pass. Ohio might go red, 50 to 49. Yeah, no shit. Ohio was not. The fact that Ohio is even close right now is a good sign. Ohio was supposed to go red. This is interesting. I will say Florida's ballot measures for both abortion and weed were slated to pass. It still won by, I guess, it still won majority. It just didn't win 60%. The ballot measure for requiring 60% didn't even pass under its own rules. It got 57%. I don't really understand how much more right-wing Florida has become. So much so that they are... New York Times Guild says needle is fine. Okay, I guess we can look at the needle. Ed Ingermentum says the New York Times Guild says the needle is okay to look at. Not that it's showing anything good. The Electoral College estimate showing Trump with 277. Popular vote estimate with a 1.3 swing to Kamala Harris so far. Oh, went down to 276. Florida's right-wing migration has had really damaging results for the state. It's just getting worse and worse every single year. CNN has Trump up 12.5 in Florida. That's normal. I mean, it's over. Florida is always a lock. It's the Florida dump theory you've talked about. Yeah, that's a joke. I said that we should just transfer all the conservatives in the country into Florida and then shut off Florida from access to the rest of the country. I was just joking when I said that. I didn't realize that people are voluntarily migrating to the state of Florida. Except we've looked at these trends before, obviously. Florida has a plus 40 Republican lean, and this is like migration patterns, okay? As in, like, the people leaving the state versus the people coming into the state of Florida are, like, the state of Florida has had a plus, like, all of the people that are coming into Florida are overwhelmingly right-wing. So right-wing that it's like a plus 40. It's the highest in the nation. Higher than double the amount of Texas. For those of you who are wondering, this is the Florida Project.
Oh, shit. Yeah, look at that. Hasan, what are some other theories you have?
I have an idea called the Florida Project.
Okay.
So Donald Trump built all these miles and miles of wall, right? On the U.S.-Mexico border.
Who's that?
He's the previous president. He's very cool. He's a poster. He built all this wall. I say we take all the wall, okay, and we wall around Florida, and we amplify that wall. Like, it's like 4 times of wall. Have you guys ever seen Attack on Titan?
I have.
Yeah. It's like that, like multiple layers of wall, right? And then what we end up doing is we put every conservative in America in Florida. We extract everyone that doesn't want to live in Florida outside of Florida.
Okay.
We put every conservative in Florida. They can live their best libertarian lives.
Wow.
And then we routinely helicopter in and extract children because they don't need to be subjected to that abuse.
You're going to take children from their parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to helicopter them out.
No. Re-education camps.
Okay.
Because, like, they don't. They
kind of like
be...
an internship
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a word.
So tell us the spider story again.
That's the Florida Project, which is happening voluntarily at this point. You sound genuinely joyous in the clip. I mean, it's hard to be genuinely joyous all the time, you know? You ever just rip a line of Sudafed and talk about big dumps in Maricopa County? Always. I'm going to need you to send the helicopter to get me out of here. Don't worry, I got you. We're going to do if the abortion bill doesn't, if the abortion amendment doesn't pass in the state of Florida either, then we might as well. More fucking bomb threats. Arizona authorities report 4 non-credible bomb threats. Brother, what is going on? At this point, motherfuckers are like, oh, you know, something I don't like, bomb threat time. Is actually fucking crazy, dude. What the hell? These guys have lost their dang minds, dude. What the fuck is going on? They're just like, yep, calling a bomb threat, I guess. Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes said in a news conference the bomb threats were directed at Navajo County. He said they came from a RU email address, but added that doesn't necessarily mean that they came from Russia. Federal and state authorities have indicated that these are not credible. By the way, people say it's Russia, but what they don't realize is that, like, you use RU email addresses in this situation because it's, like, non-traceable. Obviously, if it was a fucking federal crime that you were engaging in with an American email address, you could subpoena an American fucking, you know, you could subpoena Google to track it down and then the person would go to jail. So it's like, they're using it for illegal shit. This doesn't mean that it's like fucking KGB or FSB or whatever the fuck. It just means that, like, whoever is doing this, all these trolls that are doing this are using an RU email address. Yeah. It's not always just simply from Russia. It's usually nerds in a fucking American nerds or European nerds in a goddamn Discord server. So Oklahoma is another state to pass a citizenship amendment. Oklahoma joins several other conservative states in passing a citizenship requirement to vote. Yeah, good. I mean, okay, sure. NBC News exit poll. Majority of Texas voters think abortion should be legal. Okay. Legal in most cases at 38%. Legal in all cases at 26%. Illegal in most cases at 26%. Illegal in all cases 8%. That's a really fucking damning exit poll for the Republican Party. Not that it fucking matters. So this seems like a very bad sign regarding Latino men. NBC News, Latino men are breaking for Trump by a 10-point margin, 54-44, in a major reversal from 4 years ago, according to the NBC News exit poll. In 2020, Latino men backed Biden over Trump by a 23-point margin, 59-36. Holy moly. I mean, again, exit poll, don't know if that's like correct or not. Don't know how accurate it is, but also it could literally be, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. Across all counties, precincts, and townships counted so far, Trump is running 0.3 points ahead of our expectations, and perhaps that's all Florida. Anyway, when my wife and I were voting today, our polling place was not super busy, but we have 5 new voters get cheered while they were there in Michigan, and they were all young women. Do you think Swiftie contingent is going to have a meaningful impact? I don't think it's Swiftie contingency necessarily, but I think it's the abortion. I think it's the abortion situation. That's what I think is going on here. So anyway, what I was saying is, like, a lot of people have wondered why Donald Trump is doing so well with the Latino men, and I'm also trying to fucking pull it up, and I'm having a hard time pulling it up. God damn it, dude! Where's the fucking song? Oh, here. I found a new version. I'm just saying that could be the reason. Like, you know, do not discount the power that an absolute banger like "Yo voy a votar por Donald Trump" might have. Anyway, my polling place in Illinois was busier than I'd ever seen. I see vote at 5, and I'm usually between 40 and 70th for the day. I was voter 610. Read the room. What do you mean? Do people for real think young women are only voting because of Taylor Swift? That's irritating. I'm not gonna lie. No, I don't think people actually think that. So many Latino men at my work in Fort Lauderdale have Trump hats on today, and they were singing that song. Okay, modeling a split ticket, Lacajane says, would very much say you'd rather be Trump than Harris in Georgia at the moment. I'm not seeing the margins for Harris that she really needs in Atlanta suburbs to counteract the rural red shift yet. The same goes in North Carolina, though that's looking a bit tighter at the moment. Reminder, we had Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, Arizona all going red in our split ticket forecast, but Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin going blue. We'll get more data in the blue wall soon, but the Sun Belt doesn't look great for her right now and broadly matches pre-election polls and the midterm patterns to some extent. Isn't Trump running away in men in general? Yes. Oh, also, Congressional Swinger Vote Caucus lives on. Decision Desk headquarters projects Nancy Mace, our favorite swinger, to win the U.S. House election in South Carolina's 1st congressional district. Thank God, at least one of the Gooners made it through this tumultuous time. We obviously lost one in Mark Robinson in his gubernatorial race, but it seems to me like Nancy Mace is resilient, holding strong, and is pulling the goon. Trump is running away with men. Sounds very gay. It is. Also, Donald Trump, you had a blurb on MSNBC earlier today. Wait, really? Positive? Here's some good news. Summerlee wins re-election in the U.S. House of Representatives in Pennsylvania's 12th district. You'd be surprised at how many Latino men are conservative. I'm not surprised at all. This is the exact same thing that has been happening for non-college educated men across the board. For white non-college educated men, they've swung wildly in favor of Trump, or have always been in favor of Trump and have only increased their margins. The difference is that for Latino, non-college educated Latino men, they have moved by dramatic numbers over to the Republican side. The smallest margins come from the non-college educated black men, and yet that has been a massive point of contention this entire time. Hold on. Here, AP's latest calls. Kamala Harris is winning Illinois. Almost every region of Florida has shifted to the right. In comparison to 2020, nearly all of Florida has moved right during this presidential election cycle. Miami-Dade County saw the greatest increase with an 18 percentage point shift right. It was enough to move the county from the Democrats' column in 2020 to the Republicans this year. Steve Kornacki's back on MSNBC. Let's take a look at what he has to say. But hold on. There it is.
It fits that profile we talk about. High concentration of college degrees, higher income. There's no county in Pennsylvania in the Trump era that has become more Democratic to the degree that Chester County has. So as you start to look at the results come in here tonight, it'll be a while, see what Biden got here, 58%. Maybe set a benchmark in your head of 60%. Can Harris break 60% in Chester? Because what's happening in Pennsylvania, and this is going to be a theme in the 2 other northern tier battleground states, what's happening in Pennsylvania is the Democratic base is geographically contracting. Trump came along in 2016 and he started to run up massive margins in rural areas of the state, rural blue-collar areas of the state. And what's happened is the Democratic base has become more geographically concentrated into cities and metro areas. Again, suburbs, places, as I say, keep saying it.
Oh, MSNBC gave me a nice little shout out.
Concentrations of college degrees. So what the Democrats increasingly need to do is just focus on running up margins in those places that can offset the Trump gains elsewhere in the state. So that's what these 3 counties are all about. Bucks is a big one, about 450,000 people here. It's a little bit different. This is a true swing county here. How this one goes tonight could tell us a lot about how the state is going. It's just, it's more blue collar than these other collar counties. So we're going to be watching there. South Central, Pennsylvania, sort of this region in here, Harrisburg, Lancaster, York. This is actually an area. There are some Republican counties in here, but this is an area where Trump had some slippage. Cumberland County, this is an area where Trump had some slippage in 2020. A potential area of growth here for Democrats. We're going to keep an eye on this region. Western Pennsylvania, you see a lot of blue here again because it's vote by mail. These are almost all going to be red tonight. And this is, when I say Trump has been running up the score, these are the counties where he gets 65, 70, 75% of the vote, all in this part of the state. And I think where the game may be won or lost in Pennsylvania is going to be northeast Pennsylvania. I think we showed you at the start of the night, but I'll go back to it again. Going to be paying a lot of attention to Lackawanna County, and we've got about a quarter of the vote in here. Again, this is the vote by mail, but here's the story in Lackawanna County where the city of Scranton is. This was pre-Trump a big Democratic bastion. Trump, look at that. He almost won this in 2016. What a shift. Democrats actually jumped up to close to a 10-point win here in 2020. Was that because Joe Biden and his Scranton ties? Was that because of, something else, changing attitudes towards Trump, perhaps? Big question here. And there's a lot of counties like this in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin.
Thank you, Qatari
Big
Cat.
question here is, can Trump
For the
get this
69
back to
gifted
2016
subs.
levels, or really, can he win this county? That's what he wants to be doing. And there's also a lot of these counties in this sort of stretch of the state right here. You've got a lot of counties with substantial Hispanic populations. And that's the other thing that the Trump campaign has been talking about. Berks is where the city of Reading is. Reading is about 2/3 Hispanic, largest concentration of Hispanic voters anywhere in the state. Trump actually, he lost the city of Reading. He made gains there in 2020. He made gains in a lot of these small, mid-sized cities in Pennsylvania, sort of this part of the state right here, that have substantial Hispanic populations. His campaign is betting a lot on that being a trend that continues this election, and there being improvement for Trump in those small, mid-sized cities and the counties around them. So we're going to be paying attention to that as it comes in. So again, Democrats just need to get massive margins out of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the suburbs right around them. And Trump needs to get back to his 2016 levels in the blue-collar parts of the state. Again, it's pretty much just vote by mail that you're seeing there in Pennsylvania. But as this takes shape, that's what we're going to be looking for. And just take a quick look back here at Georgia. We've been monitoring everything. I will tell you this. One thing I've been looking at, and this is the clearest thing yet in terms of completed counties, you're always looking to see when you have all the vote in a county and you compare it to the last election and you say, is there a trend? So one of the things, there's like 3 or 4 of these categories we're looking at, but one of them we've said is the rural counties in Georgia, the heavily Republican rural counties, and it's very consistent. We now have 15, maybe 20 of them that are basically complete right now. Very small, but in just about all of them, Trump is running a point to 3 points better than he did in 2020. And that was one of our questions in Georgia. Is Trump going to slip a couple of potentially critical points in his core parts of the state? So we are not seeing that there. But there's a lot more, obviously, we're going to be looking for as Georgia continues to come in.
All right, as we continue to watch that vote come in, as Steve continues to parse those results, we're looking ahead toward 9 o'clock Eastern time. Just a few minutes from now, polls are going to be closing in a wave of
Purple Plasma, thank you for the 25
states.
gifted.
We're going to have poll closings in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan, and more. We're going to get to all of it. Stay with us.
PA Jewish vote, exit polls show 78% for Harris, versus 22% for Trump. It's not surprising in the least bit that that is the case. That tracks with the rest of the country. So is PA locked in for Harris? What are your early predictions? There's no way that I can tell you anything like that yet. There's been a ton of demographic shift in rural Georgia. A lot of white flight. Amendment 4 for Florida is currently at 47% yes with 90% reporting. Brother, I am Brian. Kill me if we can't even pass this basic ass shit. Wait. Abortion is at fucking less than it. Abortion is sub 50% in Florida. You mean 57%? That's not looking too good either. Anyway, let's continue. This is, I mean, Ohio is like very strange. Like there's a market shift towards blue in Ohio, whereas the places that were red to begin with, have become increasingly more red. There's obviously some population changes happening. But the places to look out for here are going to be for North Carolina and Georgia. But once again, remember, this kind of shift blue in Ohio could mean good things for, what the fuck? Oh, here it is. Could mean good things for the blue wall here. Okay. This is it. This is the Kamala Harris pathway to victory. Okay. This right here is what will take out Donald Trump. That's what they need. It's good that Georgia is competitive. I mean, it'd be nice. I'm an Ohioan. I'm telling you, man, it can't swing. The JD Vance effect is what they're calling it. They're calling it the greatest vice presidential pick of all time. Like better than Sarah Palin. What Sarah Palin did to the Maverick McCain campaign, JD Vance is doing specifically to Donald Trump in one key state. VA called for Harris by decision desk. Wee woo. Virginia has been called by decision desk for Kamala Harris. Even though CNN has not called it yet. DeSantis is now saying Amendment 3 has failed and Amendment 4 has failed. He said this an hour ago. Amendment 3 and 4 fail and shows that Floridians aren't buying into the political games anymore. People want real solutions, not just empty promises. The fuck are you talking about? It's the most that is the most hardline real solution you can get. It's a fucking constitutional amendment in the form of a ballot measure, you goddamn idiot. God, oh my God. Por Dios, yo voy a votar por Donald Trump. Ay. Okay, sorry. Let's see if Edinger Mentum is around. Can you speak German? No. Next round of polls are closing at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is in 10 minutes. Arizona, Colorado, which we won't know about for a while. Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New York, New Mexico, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wyoming, and Wisconsin. Delaware race is called, perhaps bittersweet for Biden. Must be bittersweet for Joe Biden to watch as the vice president carries his home state of Delaware. Okay. Kim Jong-un apparently voted in Las Vegas. This is really, really devastating. I'm not going to lie. This is a sad state of affairs. Florida rejecting the abortion measure is fucking crazy. Oh, they are so cooked. Florida is so fucking cooked. It is the most cooked state in the nation. It's so bad. It's so bad. Like the weed thing is also shocking, but the abortion thing, god damn, dude. God fucking damn. Our split ticket pre-election forecast was D+5 in New Hampshire. Gotta say, that was one of those things that raised my eyebrows. I thought from my priors we were on track to undershoot her there. Guess not. Yeah. New Hampshire was New Hampshire potentially underperforming for Kamala Harris was a scary sign, and it turns out that the New York Times Needle has Harris projected at a margin of 3.9 in New Hampshire and 5.1 in VA. Very big swing towards Trump predicted by pre-election polls, but not to this extent in light blue states. Floridians get what they voted for, law. I know, but you have to remember it's a fucking massive state, and there's plenty of people who don't agree. And also, again, these constitutional measures, these constitutional amendments in the form of ballot measures are still incredibly popular. Once again, it's literally almost 60% popularity. The problem with Florida is it has to reach 60%. So when something is 57% and it doesn't pass, it's still ridiculous. Okay? Like both amendments are above 55%, both weed legalization, marijuana legalization, and also abortion protections. They were both above 55%, abortion at 57%. And yet it still, it doesn't pass because it has to be over 60%. So it is inherently undemocratic when the majority of the Floridian population is like, we want this, and then they still don't get it. It is still shocking to me that it couldn't reach 50%, though. That's what I mean. What I'm saying about how cooked fucking Florida is it should pass 60% in Florida. That's what's shocking to me. Like, are they that polarized? Are Americans that polarized, especially for a state like Florida? Are they that fucking right wing that they couldn't reach over the 60% margin in a state like Florida? This is unheard of. Like an abortion state constitutional amendment not passing 60% in Florida is unthinkable. Maybe 4 years ago, and especially 8 years ago, it's unthinkable. Way too many fucking Republicans, I guess, moved to Florida, and like the worst kind of Republicans, not even like normal Republicans. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said there have been multiple bomb threats called in the polling locations across the state, but said so far there's no credible threat to the public. Shapiro, Democrat, spoke at a news conference. There's fucking bomb threats everywhere. Holy shit. Pre-MAGA merge at Trump's watch party. Yeah, Florida is experiencing the biggest migration in a generation. Here at 10 state locals are moving to. Florida has had the most right-wing shift the most right-wing migration shift in the entire country, doubling the migration pattern, politically speaking, in comparison to even Texas, which has also had a 20-plus Republican, 20-point migration shift. So that is pretty consequential for the state. It changes the state makeup dramatically. New York Times says with more than 95% of results reported in Florida, the state has clearly moved to the right since 2020. That year, Donald Trump won by about 3 percentage points. He seems to be on track to carry it by about 13% points. Thoughts at the moment. Florida was a bloodbath. Trump is slightly favored in GA. Harris will win VA comfortably, though it'll shift right by several points from 2020. Not looking good early for Brown in Ohio in terms of separation with Harris. Blue wall looms large. Outside of the blue wall, North Carolina is looking tight and polls are still open in Arizona and Nevada. Not the way you'd prefer to start the night if you're Harris, but a lot of game left to play. Yeah. If Trump wins, will he actually declassify the JFK files or is this just hopium? Yes, he's a fucking liar. He said that about 9/11 too. Do you not remember? Donald Trump literally went on Alex Jones's TV show in 2016 and said he was going to declassify 9/11 files, and then he did not. So he just lies all the time to curry favor with like right-wing weirdos, like the conspiracy people. Isn't it bad overall for the Republicans if they condense all the people into a few states? I mean, that's not really happening either. So we shall see. Why is she doing so bad right now? The reason why it looks like she's doing bad, and we'll see. These next couple of hours is the make it or break it. Okay, the next couple of hours is going to be the make it or break it situation. Because if the blue wall, which is the only pathway to victory for Kamala Harris, does not it's going to come down to Pennsylvania, as I said. It's going to come down to Pennsylvania, as I said earlier. If the blue wall stands strong, then Kamala Harris wins 270 plus electoral college votes. If it doesn't, then it's fucking Jover. I'm calling it in Germentum right now. Blue wall is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. All right. Josh, you are live.
Yeah.
How are things looking on your end?
Yeah, general takeaways. Trump, if you look at the rural areas, I'm looking specifically at Georgia now. If you look at the rural areas, he's not outrunning 2020 by all that much. Most of the rural areas are only showing a shift in his favor by about a couple points. That, like, ideally would not be a huge deal, but the problem is that when you look at, like, the result in 2020, you had such a close race that these rural areas shifting a couple points and maybe having higher turnout can tilt the race towards him. Kamala's hope, and this is what Dr. Bullock at University of Georgia, my old Southern politics professor, he told me when I asked about the state of the race, she will need, in the Atlanta metro area, she will need election day vote, which doesn't make up a huge percentage of the vote there, to give her like enough of a shift in the metro area to possibly, and enough turnout to possibly counteract those shifts in the rural areas. We don't have any fully completed Atlanta metro area counties right now, but I will say that she is not outrunning in these counties. Warnock did this. The path here, the idea here is that Warnock in 2022, when he faced Herschel Walker, Senator Warnock, he faced losses in rural areas, but he was able to outrun in the metro area by enough to actually outperform Biden by a large amount. He won by 3 points. He only won by like 0.1. The problem for the vice president is that she is not, in the current totals, is not outrunning in the metro area, Biden's performance in the metro area, by as much as Warnock did in 2022. We will see. There is a possibility that she could increase her margins and do slightly better in the case of a blue shift in the Atlanta metro area. If these final 20%, 30% of votes in these metro area counties are more Democratic than the results we have now, that could counteract these rural shifts. They're not especially huge, but I would say that Trump, for this, like, we don't have any completed counties in the metro area right now. Some counties, as more votes have come in, have shown a blue shift. Some have shown a slight red shift. If she was getting Warnock numbers in the Atlanta metro area, I think that she could be in a position to win Georgia. The problem is that she's not getting Warnock numbers.
Georgia's not looking great for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
AP's called Donald Trump for South Dakota. And and AP is called Donald Trump for Louisiana and Wyoming, and Donald Trump has won the statewide vote in Nebraska and the 2 electoral votes. For the 3rd consecutive election, he won the popular vote on Tuesday, receiving 2 electoral college votes. Nebraska is one of the 2 states that divide electoral votes, with 2 votes going to the statewide winner and 1 apiece to the winner of each congressional district. Trump won Nebraska by 25 points in 2016, 19 points 4 years later. I don't know if he's like slated to outperform his.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and this is a credit to pollsters. I had an article, and it was an article that did very well. It doubted the new methodologies that pollsters were using that I thought, going off of the track record of 2022, could be artificially deflating the Democratic vote, because that's what they did in 2022. They showed more Republican-friendly numbers in a lot of states that were just based off of right-wing media narratives, and they ended up being quite off. What they're doing now, the methods that they use to capture the right-wing vote, the possible missing Trump voters, his support, by using these somewhat questionable methods, do seem to have been capable of capturing some degree of support that polling methods from 2020 might have missed. Yeah, Texas is not surprising here. So the world is
over. Blue Texas is over. The dream is dead.
Yeah, I will say that I was very much a Blexus denier back in 2023, and the liberals got very mad at me for that. But Texas, like, for all the dreams and all of the long-term election stuff people have talked about with Blexus, Texas shifted a lot to the right in 2016, actually. It shifted a lot to the right in 2016. 2020, it trended to the left a little bit. And then since then, it's been stagnant. This is a consistent Trump, like, relative to the country, R+9, R+8, R+10 state. You are not, like, seeing... Oh, New York Times has shift from 2020. Like, in terms of Texas, you are not seeing like the types of trends that people expected to see. This is a long-term difficulty for Democrats. I think this is a result of racial depolarization, where you have these traditionally Democratic non-white populations moving away from the party. We saw inklings of this in 2022. The reason why Democrats were so successful in 2022 was because of their success with white voters. And the hope for the party, the Democratic Party, and the vice president here is that they can get something like 2022, where you have these collapses in states like Florida, these Republican strength in states like Texas, and Republican states that are uncompetitive in general. But in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they manage to hold their ground. Republican rule shifts are not that significant, and they manage to keep some strength in the suburban, urban areas. That's enough for them to carry these states. That's her path. That's why I'd still describe this race as a toss-up. I think that the potential world, and I had Kamala, I saw her as a slight favorite coming into this race, largely because of the Seltzer poll. The Seltzer poll, Ann Seltzer looks like she's kind of run out of luck. We'll see what Iowa looks like specifically. There may be some results in there. I think, Hasan, you have Iowa on the Axios thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spencer is here. He worked with me on the Chapo project that we've been doing on the religious right. He says that Cruz is likely to win. Again, this is something polling predicted. Yeah, that's Spencer. Say hi to Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, the way I looked at the situation, this is not unexpected at all from where I'm standing. I never thought that. I mean, like the way I saw it is like Georgia and North Carolina would be close and potentially a nice additional cherry on top. But like what has to stay strong in this situation is, of course, going to be Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, she can't lose any of that, but especially Pennsylvania, I think. Considering like the performance thus far in all these other states, do you feel like there's anything that, like, if the pollsters were not weighing for Trump support, or were actually correct in their additional points for Trump in the way that they weighed in favor of Donald Trump because of his, because he's a turnout machine.
Yeah.
What does that say for Pennsylvania's chances?
Yeah. Well, Pennsylvania, this is probably going to be tight in these areas. I'm a little worried about, I think Wisconsin is maybe the place to worry about here. Joshua Smithy, who's very good in Pennsylvania, says that he thinks she's hitting her targets. I think she's very much in the race at Pennsylvania. Michigan, I think the New York Times still has her slightly favored. That matches with polling as well. So she still has that Midwestern path. She's not losing any of these safe states that could potentially compromise that.
Now Dems are doing the wait in line to vote tweets.
Yeah.
It's over. It's Jover.
Oh yeah.
It was early on in the day. It was the Republicans that were pumping out the "if you're in line, stay in line" tweets, and now the Democrats are pumping them.
Maybe not be by enough that she, as much as she may need to counteract these. Like, I think this case in Georgia is that you have a death by 1,000 cuts of these rural shifts, these rural areas that are all moving to the right by 2, 3, 4 points. If you had a Warnock level performance in the Atlanta metro area, you could definitely counteract that. I think Warnock actually faced even more intense rural shifts in some parts of the state. But Kamala, as it stands in the metro area counties where we do have like 70, 80% turnout, she's not outrunning by as much as Warnock did. And that is her problem. Like Cobb County, I have the Washington Post swing thing here, 73% in. She's outrunning Biden by 2. That's fine. That's respectable. If you go by a even shift of this, she would win Georgia by 2 if every county in the state shifted like Cobb did. But when you have all these rural counties that are shifting to the right by 2 or 4 points, you're going to need like larger like shifts to the left in these metro area counties compared to 2020 than you currently have right now, especially when Fulton and DeKalb are basically running even with Biden in 2020. Her hope here, and I think Greg Bluestein, who's reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, said she needs to rely on an election day Hail Mary, where the election day votes for her are better than the early day votes for her. That's possible, but the level of votes that are counted in these states makes me skeptical that it could have that much of a shift.
So you're now you're still in the tank for Kamala Harris, but you've leaned even further to the center, away from Kamala Harris's slight favor to win.
I would say that at this point, I consider this race to be a toss-up, as the New York Times says. I would have Trump as probably favored to win Georgia, unless we see something we don't expect in the metro area. Day turnout, there's maybe signs of a slight blue shift there. North Carolina, I think, is still in play. You had Orange County, which is one of the Research Triangle places that shifted towards her compared to 2020. You had some counties, Mitchell County, in the Appalachian areas that shifted towards her. There are some rough results for her in the rural areas, but we don't have anything. We don't have much out of Mecklenburg. We don't have anything out of Mecklenburg yet. We don't have anything out of Durham. Wake County is showing a shift towards her. I think North Carolina is possible, and that would be huge for her. That'd be very, very big. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, we just don't have much in yet, and it's hard to make many judgments.
Okay. All right. So it's Jover, is what you're saying. It's Jover.
I don't think it's Jover. I think this is kind of the world that polling predicted, where you have these movement towards Trump in these uncompetitive states. You have slightly reduced margins compared to 2020, but like a narrow but possible path through the Midwest. We don't have anything out of Wisconsin yet. Michigan, Pennsylvania, very early in their vote counts. Both could possibly go towards her. And the West is still completely up to question. We don't know how that'll go. But the big dream that people thought where she could potentially compete in Texas, she could potentially compete in Iowa.
Well, yeah. I think her being competitive in Texas was always fucking stupid. That was never going to be a thing.
I was always of the belief of that. People gave me shit for that.
I've never been a Blegsis believer. I have routinely shied away from that, and I wasn't even like a firm committed believer in Georgia nor North Carolina. Yeah. So none of those things are important to me. The way I see it is like it's going to come down to Pennsylvania and
Wisconsin. I think Pennsylvania and
Wisconsin. Yes, exactly. And a lot of people yelled at me when I said Wisconsin is heavily dominated by rural and suburban voters, and Donald Trump does a really good job of captivating rural and suburban voters, and therefore Wisconsin is going to be a trickier battle. But pollsters, if they're correct on every other aspect of this, have also consistently consistently put Kamala Harris as Kamala Harris's chances above Donald Trump by multiple points in Wisconsin. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was,
and the same goes for Michigan as well. Like Kamala Harris's chances in Michigan have, according to polls, looked a lot better. So is she going to underperform the polls, or is she going to perform as expected? And then Florida becomes still a toss up.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean much, but like for the whole race, it's moving to Lenore.
We can't hear
I
him,
think
by
that
the way.
makes sense. We'll just need more out of the Midwest before we see that. Yeah, the first results in Wisconsin are coming in.
Yeah, Trump doubles black support in Wisconsin, according to the NBC exit poll. This year, Trump is polling 20% of the black vote versus 78% for Harris. 4 years ago, Trump won about 8% of black voters in the Badger State.
Yeah, this is all very much in line with what polling said.
Early vote in Nebraska, heavily D. Fisher is only 5 points behind Ricketts, with Ricketts expected to win easily, likely no Osborne upset.
Yeah. The polls kind of broke away from her at the very end there.
Yeah.
I don't think Democrats, like with the way that Ohio going to Trump, we'll see what the margin is there. Unless there's some insane upset in Montana, the Senate should probably go Republican.
So let's talk about New Hampshire. New Hampshire has some, I guess, like New Hampshire, Kamala Harris seemingly is underperforming.
Yeah. Well, she's performing about in line with the polling. Let me check what the New York Times projects in that state. But the rural areas there, you are seeing a shift towards Trump. I think like the story of the election we're seeing right now, and the Midwest could be an exception here. We'll see what that ends up looking like. Is that it has her at +4 in New Hampshire, which is a reduced margin compared to Biden, who won it by 7 points. What we are seeing here is that we have Kamala largely running in line with Biden support in urban areas and suburban areas, not really gaining on him like Democrats in 2022 did. Well, yeah, they called Texas for Trump, which is not much of a surprise.
Yeah.
Not really gaining on him in these areas like Biden did over Clinton, while facing losses in rural areas that move these states, I would say, in Trump's direction. I don't think she's out of the race at all. I think that the Midwest, if this is all very much in line with polling, the Midwest very much presented a world where she could win while doing poorly in like these non-competitive states and these less white states. But racial depolarization, I would say, is very much real. Rural shift towards Trump, I would say, is real in a way that we didn't see in 2022. And this, it's tough for Democrats. It presents as kind of a strange world where they might actually be in a very good position in lower turnout elections like midterms and special elections. But when the electorate opens up in a presidential race like it has now, they face this larger universe of voters who aren't quite as partisan. I wouldn't say this is the young men thing. I would say this is more about a minorities thing and rural voters, where this larger electorate is not as favorable to them as the midterm electorate was in 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, what's NBC saying? I have to go to the restroom real quickly. If you could take me off for a second.
Okay. Yeah. Just give me a call back when you're ready. All right, energy momentum, everybody. Let's check in with the news. See what the fuck's going on there.
Wake finishes. We want to see Mecklenburg, the Triad. You got Greensboro.
I got to pee as well.
We don't have a ton here. Greensboro, Forsyth County, where Winston-Salem is. So still a bit more to come there. And then Georgia, look, 70% in now. Trump continuing with an advantage here. It's about 243,000 votes, and we are getting a lot more clarity in the Metro Atlanta area. A couple of things we talked about this. Democrats wanting to improve margins here. That's what they need to do. Cobb County is a place, where this was a Republican stronghold not long ago, where Democrats are running up the score lately. You see what happened in 2020. Biden won here by 14 points. Currently, 78% of the vote is in. Harris, this is the early vote likely. Harris is winning here by 16. The concern for Democrats is the remaining vote, we suspect, is that election day vote, a little bit more Republican friendly. 16 would be a very good margin for Democrats in Cobb, but does that come down? If it falls falls below that 2020 level at all, that's very alarming for Democrats. Fulton County, again, we've got the early vote in here, and now some of the same day as well. Look at that. It looks exactly like it did in 2020. Democrats want to grow that a little more. Again, concern for them. It's a big blue county, but if what's still to come in Fulton is a little less blue, and that number slips below 2020, that's a trouble sign for Democrats. We flagged Fayette County early in the night. Would this one flip? If the blob, I call it the blue blob there, was going to expand, this is the place. It's not quite all in, but almost all in right now. You see Trump with a 2.5-point lead. Now, that is progress for Democrats from 2020. This was a 7-point race in 2020, so it's progress for Democrats. Will it be enough progress? Again, those other big, giant suburban counties there are going to tell a lot of that story. We finally have a little bit in Gwinnett County. I just want to linger on this one for a minute because it's enormous. This county has over 1 million people. It has transformed demographically in the last generation. This used to be a staunchly Republican, heavily white county. It's now one of the most diverse in the country. Democrats, you can see Biden won here by 18 points in 2020. And again, the Democratic margin here, it's just been, look at this. In 2016, it was a single-digit race. It became almost 20 in 2020. Democrats want this over 20 tonight. Let's see. It's early there, but that's a key one just because of the size and because of the trajectory. So again, oh, and we can also just take a look. I said these sort of exurban, fringe Atlanta metro counties that are red. The question here is, do they become less red? The biggest of them is Cherokee County, and we got almost all of Cherokee County now. This is where Canton, Georgia is, one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Georgia here. Take a look. This is what happened in 2020. Donald Trump won here by he's winning it. You could see almost the same as about 0.3 of a point off. The Trump campaign
leading Trump.
Let's see here. They don't want big slippage. There's not big slippage. I think they would have liked to claw back a little bit more here, but they're not losing ground. And there are scenarios where that's enough for them in Georgia. You can look next door. Is Forsyth County. Now, this is another. This is very wealthy. This is a biggie you can see in terms of votes. This is a place where Trump lost.
Is there a threshold for you to feel proper nervous? I feel a little nervous.
Same day still to come, so room for Trump growth here. He's already overperforming a point.
I have time and time again repeated
That's
that
an encouraging one for Republicans. You can just kind of complete this loop quickly. I'll just show you some
I don't think this is 2016. The reason why I don't think it's 2016 is because it's not like everyone was super hopeful.
In 2020, you see he's improved by about 1.5 points here. Not major, but this was a state that was decided by a fraction of a point in 2020. So any shift is significant. Barrow County,
2016 was like looking
Trump
like a banger for Hillary Clinton.
In 2020, a little bit more slippage here tonight for Trump. You can see Harris running 1.5 points better than Biden did. Trump basically level with 2020. And you can take a look down here at Walton County again.
How do we read these results? Is it even worth watching? Yes.
Trump had slippage here in 2020. 49 points, believe it or not, was slippage for the Republican. Tonight, 46. This is the early vote. Again, same day. Does it get back to 49? Does it get back to 50? That's what Trump wants with the remaining vote there. I think we've got just about all of Douglas County in right now. And again, Douglas County, it's one of these demographically, it's fast growing, it's transforming politically, it's diversifying.
SNL, I can't. Celebrity endorsement, Twitch shows.
Douglas have achieved what they want to do here. Biden won this thing by 25 points in 2020, just about all in. Now Harris has it north of 30 points. That is something Democrats want to see there. So again, we zoom out statewide. It's a 6-point lead right now. We could also check in if you want. We could just take a look. We've got them marked off on here. I'll show you. This is. We were talking about this in North Carolina, same in Georgia. There's a lot of rural counties with large African-American populations, and the question for Democrats is, can they improve? They'd like to improve turnout-wise, vote performance-wise, obviously, relative to last time. So again, I think we showed you earlier, Baldwin's just about all in. This is a change. This was a blue county in 2020. It's flipped over to Trump. All the vote is in right now. Look, you can see here, Wilkes County, just about all the vote is in.
How soon is it polite to start blaming leftists?
Trump won this thing, by about 13 points and change.
I'm sure the Democrats have already decided
seeing a bit
exactly what flavor of leftists they're going to shit on. It's coming, though. They will always blame the left.
Right now.
And they will always tack right. which is ironically the reason why
That
they're,
same-day vote, we're
I think, losing motion and momentum in a lot of these states.
Similar, I think, to what we're looking at to what we're seeing so far in North Carolina. Here's another one, very small, but again, this is a large black population, 19 points here in 2020. Tonight it's sitting at about 16.5 with just about all the votes. And again, these slight differences in a state like Georgia can make all the difference. Where of all these millions of votes, we expect about 5 million votes. And in 2020, it was separated by 12,000 of them. So again, if there's any slippage for Democrats here off that 2020 number in full, that's a very bad sign for them. And they are at right now. You know, Harris is at 72.6. This is the biggest single county in Georgia, 72.6, 72.6. If this number starts dropping with the remaining vote, with that remaining same-day vote to come in, even though that looks like an enormous Democratic win, and by numbers it is, it may not be enormous enough. The Democrats don't want any slippage there, so we'll be paying close attention to that one too, Rachel, as we get more from Georgia.
Okay. I was joking earlier, but now I think Brother Banks was really the canary in the coal mines. No, Brother Banks is in Florida. I mean, not in Florida, sorry, in fucking California. But it does mean something when people are not worried about Donald Trump to a degree where, like, even someone who wants to be brand friendly to a certain degree or doesn't want to come across like someone who's hateful is confident enough to be able to outwardly show support to Donald Trump. This means that a lot of people don't view Donald Trump as a danger to America, especially in our demographic, in our age group. That in and of itself is terrifying. It's also kind of funny because Brother Banks's assessment on the situation was damn near identical to all the fucking criticisms that I had of the Democratic Party in terms of like being hypocritical on the issue of immigration, in terms of like not outwardly communicating that they're anti-war and that like this type of shit tracks, this type of lack of communication on that agenda, on that front, gives Donald Trump the opportunity to say he's the fucking peaceful dove candidate. A lot of these were issues that I routinely talked about, that I said Kamala Harris was running a bad campaign. And for some weird reason, everyone was like, no, Hasan, you're wrong. Kamala Harris is running a good campaign. I still believe, in spite of all of that, that there are a lot of people who are like, I don't want to fuck with this Trump shit at all. But it was way too tricky. It was a massive gamble. Something that I reiterated over and over again for the past couple of months. Non-fucking stop. And people said that I was completely wrong. And that, no, it's actually good to tack to the center. It's actually good. Why would anybody vote for you as the anti-migrant party if the other side is constantly increasing the pressure on migrants? So all of that are massive flaws in the way that Kamala Harris has campaigned thus far. Decision Desk is calling North Carolina for Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump is projected to win North Carolina. Once again, North Carolina and Georgia, competitive states, but overall, they were a part of the 7 swing states that we were talking about. But the ones that are important in Pennsylvania, I have said this for months. And if Pennsylvania falls, it's Jover. That's when you know it's 100% Jover. Okay? Speaking of Pennsylvania. Oh my God, Kaya, chill. Speaking of Pennsylvania, Michael from Pennsylvania, I'm calling him now.